I think we're getting to a point where virtual reality is starting to get really interesting. It's easily the most immersive form of video gaming right now, so the obvious way to implement it is to put you in a situation where you feel very involved in what's happening to you. Resident Evil 7, it becomes 20 times scarier when you're no longer looking at a TV on the wall, and now you're the one in the house peeking around corners watching out for Jack. For a long time, VR seemed to be all about making you the hero, the protagonist, the one the action surrounds, but what if we were something different? A bystander, an observer. Astrobot showed me back in late 2018 that a third-person VR game can work really well. It's an extremely effective way to really put you in the shoes of a character, but it turns out that it's also a really effective way of, instead of being a character, creating a bond with a character. And that brings me to Ghost Giant, a PlayStation VR game that has you in the shoes of not the protagonist, but rather a friendly giant who helps him through each level, and by extension, his hardships and his emotional barriers. It was made by Zoink Games, a small Swedish studio that you might know for making Faye, or how this game, but they also did some other stuff too, like the Core Gang, which I've never heard of, but this really looks like something that I would like to play. Whatever it is they make, it seems like their games are usually pretty artistically driven, experimenting with a lot of different visual styles, and Ghost Giant is no exception. It has a very handcrafted look to it, having you tower over dioramas constructed of wood and paper. It's got a very theatrical vibe to it, almost as if you're watching a play, and it's made pretty evident from the beginning that this is what they're going for with the stage select looking like a theater set. And I think that was a really cool decision, because in Ghost Giant, you don't directly control the protagonist. Instead, you watch him go along and interact with the world around him to guide him through it. I guess it's kind of like Pac-Man 2, if anybody remembers that thing. Imagine that, except with two big ghosty hands instead of a slingshot. Also imagine it being good and not bad. We follow this adorable little cat dude named Louie, and he's struggling with a lot in his life at the moment. What exactly? Well, he's not really that open about it. He never tells people what's wrong. Instead, he makes constant excuses.
Mom? By the lake. Fishing. Yeah.
Taylor, we need to talk about that bill later.
He tells white lies.
Where is she, by the way?
At home. She sprained her ankle, so I hitched a ride.
And he has constant panic attacks whenever he feels like he can't do anything about it. But one day he starts seeing this gigantic ghost who follows him around and helps him out. The thing is, though, Louie is the only one who can see you. The ghost is, of course, you. That's who you're playing as, and using the two PlayStation Move controllers, you'll move objects in the environment to solve an array of puzzles. It's very heavily driven by its narrative, but this is a puzzle game at its core. Louie's gonna have some sort of objective, and you'll look around your surroundings for a way to achieve that. It'll usually involve finding a key item and figuring out where to put it, but since you're a giant and the world's your toolbox, you can get pretty crafty with what it is you use. For example, there's this one objective that has you painting a picture so you can distract these pretentious art nerds so they'll let you across the bridge. So you're like, what am I going to use to paint this thing? Oh, I'll grab a mop because that's like a paintbrush to me, right? And then you look around for various liquids to dip it in so you can paint the picture. It's a lot of really obtuse yet weirdly practical solutions. There's a couple of head scratchers in there, but you can usually figure out what to do by listening to the NPCs around you talk to themselves.
Why don't you go out there with one of my boxes and offer people a free sample?
That's one thing that is very strong in this game. The performances. The dialogue is really well delivered, especially from Louie. Like, the emotional range you're gonna hear from this dude is pretty impressive. From the moments that have him cowering in fear,
Won't find you here. Come on.
to the parts where he's trying to rationalize with himself,
Maybe I should wait until tomorrow. Or next week.
and of course the parts that'll paint a big smile on your face.
Hello, I'm a grown-up man driving my car like I've been doing for the past 30 years of being a grown-up.
That should do the trick.
These are characters that are impossible not to love. Not even just the performances, but, you know, the adorable character designs. It's a game that is overwhelmingly charming. I was also really impressed by how fluently the voice talent was able to switch between English and French accents when pronouncing the French words.
And not just any kind. Roquefort.
You are a genius, chérie. They're going to award you the Prix Goncourt.
That is not an easy thing to do. Like, I'll tell you right now, as somebody that's like talked about French companies in videos like Ubisoft Montpellier, it's difficult to like have that flow and make it not sound weird. There's a lot of French influence here, especially in the music, and that is one of the driving components of this game, the main character being somebody who plays piano, and he's the son of a renowned cellist, and it does feel truly magical when you nudge Louis along and he unearths music in the world around him. So you've probably already guessed this by now, but this is a game that deals with a lot of emotional distress and anxiety, and as somebody that has personally dealt with a lot of anxiety in the past, I think this game deals with it in a really brilliant way, because anxiety is something that is invisible to everybody except you. It's something you can't describe, it's something you don't understand, and you don't know why it's there or how to get rid of it. Which is really interesting because that's exactly what this gigantic invisible ghost is to Louis. Anxiety for me is kind of like, imagine lava in your chest pouring out into the rest of your body real slowly, and your limbs feel weak like spaghetti, you're overcome with this irrational fear, and like talking stops working. It was really bad for me back in high school, but I still deal with it to an extent even today. Like, I remember back when I was first recognized in public for the very first time, I was at a convention and this really excited person came up to me and they said, "Oh my god, are you Nitro Rad?" And I was so scared, I said no. And that's what anxiety is for some people. It is feeling so uncomfortable for no reason at all that you do things that don't make any sense. And I'm really glad I had that experience because, like, I wanted to die at first, but the more people that came up to me, the more I became comfortable with it, and now I'm completely over it because of spending 3 days of just that happening to me again and again and again. You kind of have to expose yourself to it, and now that I've done that, like, when people come up to me now, I'm like, yo, what's good? It's great. And that's kind of what Ghost Giant is all about. It's a game about healing. It's about feeling like you're at the bottom of a well, but you look up and you know the way out does exist. You just gotta figure out how to get there. God, I remember one time I was in a high school play, and right before I went on stage for the first time, I looked at my friend Dylan and I said, I feel like I'm going to vomit. I'm going to faint. I'm going to crap myself. But that ended up being a really good outlet for me, being in front of a huge audience with all these eyes on you. But I was in character, and that kind of made it really easy to get comfortable with that. In a way, playing different characters in front of all of these people, that was kind of like my way out. It was the top of my well. And I think that's another reason why this game resonated with me so damn well, is because of that theater aesthetic. Theater is one of the things that helped me overcome one of the largest elements of my social anxiety, so it felt really at home watching a character deal with it in that setting. Oh, and I especially love how the house lights dim and there's a spotlight focused in on a certain point of the area, and it has you physically leaning into the edge of your seat to watch the characters interact in a key scene. And the French setting and characters, that also felt really at home to me, because as somebody that grew up in Canada, French was the only other language outside of English that I heard a lot growing up, because, you know, up in here in Canada, we all take basic French lessons in late elementary and then throughout middle school. And I mean, like, I don't know a lick of French despite the French lessons, but, you know, it's just being exposed to that language and the culture surrounding it every single day at school. It just becomes something that resonates with you when you see it again all of these years later. This really is a fantastic game. Once again, we have something that demonstrates how VR can be used to create a powerful experience that isn't just putting you in the shoes of a main character. Sometimes spending time with somebody instead of being that somebody is the more effective way of telling a story. I think maybe the only really bad thing I could say about this game is that it's not terribly long. It only takes you about 2 hours to finish, and I'm sure a lot of people would probably prefer maybe a longer experience if they're paying that much for it. I especially notice that I get those comments from younger people, and like, I get it. I remember when I was in middle school and I was too young to have a job, so I had to rely on birthdays and Christmas to get games, so I didn't have a lot of games at once, so I would rather the ones that I did have to be longer so I could spend more time with them. But now that I'm an adult and I don't have to worry about that sort of thing anymore, I find myself much preferring short and meaningful experiences over something that is long and maybe kind of repetitive or substanceless. Potato chips. There's also some hidden goodies to find, like hats that you can can put on Louis, which is way too much fun and way too adorable. There's also these basketball hoops you can notice in the background, so you gotta look for a basketball to chuck on in there, but I didn't really care for these ones because I had a really hard time getting these basketballs in those hoops. Throwing stuff in VR isn't always really good. Sometimes it is, but this is one of those games where it's just a little clunky, so I was having a hard time with this. I liked it a lot more in Accounting Plus. In that game, if you miss a couple of times, they just give you the trophy anyway.
Okay, look. I'll give you the trophy. We don't have to tell anyone about this. As far as the world knows, you got the ball in the hoop.
But yeah, if you're big into puzzle games or you want a great emotional little story, I would absolutely recommend this game. If you're a PlayStation VR user, of course. This thing is only on PSVR. I don't think it's on Steam, which is weird because usually games are on Steam first and then they come to PlayStation VR. I don't think it was published by Sony or anything, so I don't see why not, but I don't know. Either way, I'm just really happy that we're starting to see VR experiences that are more intimate and creative and ambitious. You know, this is a game that thoroughly demonstrates that in a world full of gallery shooters and horror games, VR can instead be used to create a meaningful connection, not just to the world around you, but to a story.